Hi, Papa Yeager here with This Day in History. February 10th, 1957, 3 days after her 90th birthday, Laura Ingalls Wilder died. She was born 2 years after the Civil War in 1867. She was born in Wisconsin. She moved with her family to Indian country in Kansas and eventually moved to Minnesota. And then eventually her parents settled in the Dakota Territory. It was while she was living in the Dakotas that she met Almanzo, and they got married. They lived there for a while. Laura had a daughter, Rose. She gave birth to a son who died shortly after his birth. The Dakotas, however, were not kind to them. There was drought. There was a fire. So they eventually ended up moving back east to Mansfield, Missouri, which is in the Ozarks. Laura Ingalls wrote her life story through several novels. It is believed that her daughter helped her edit them. We don't really know, historians don't know how much her daughter actually influenced her work, but her first book wasn't published. Little House in the Big Woods wasn't published until she was in her 60s, which kind of gives me hope. My first book is going to get published when I'm in my 50s. So maybe there's hope that there will be more. As many of you might know, she was my childhood hero. I loved Laura. I watched the TV show. I don't think I missed any episode, and I'm sure I saw most episodes 2-3 times. And I also fell in love with her books. She is the reason I wanted to be a writer. I wanted, at some point, the ability to also write about my life and experience. And I always thought that, life was kind of boring now compared to the frontier. But my first book will also be memoir about my dad and COVID. So encapsulating a time period in American history. Several years ago, when I was traveling with my son in the Midwest, I made a point of traveling. I dragged my son to Laura's house in Kansas. It was a replica of her little house, the little house on the prairie. My son was so bored. He walked around with me quickly and then retreated to the shade of a tree where he sat and read Stephen King and argued with me that Stephen King was a far better writer than Laura ever would be. I, of course, had to disagree with him. And then that trip, we were in the Ozarks, and I took a 2-hour detour because there was no way I was going to not end up at Laura's Mansfield house. I had to see it. And it was a really very amazing experience. I'm glad I went. And yes, I probably, if I'm ever in the area, I would detour and go back. Anyway, that's This Day in History, February 10th, 1957. Laura Ingalls Wilder died.